S- This is the hardest episode that I've recorded yet. It's not because the content is really complicated. It's really not. I do know what I want to say. The problem for me with this, the hard thing about this for me is that I'm actually not done with this part of divorce yet. So I want to talk to you about forgiveness from inside the process, not from the other side. And I want to be really honest with you about that because I don't ever want to be aspirational and be like, oh, I've done all of this. I've accomplished all of this. I have it figured out. I don't have this figured out. I'm not going to give you 5 steps to forgiveness with a closing affirmation. I'm going to tell you what I actually think and what I've gone through, and that's messier and more honest and also hopefully more useful to you. Welcome back to Breaking Upward. I'm Rachel Newhouse. This is the last episode of my first series of podcasts, and I chose to end here on purpose because I believe that everything else we've talked about, the documents, attorneys, co-parenting, dates, dollar jars, all of it works better and lasts longer if you can do this one thing. And today I want to tell you how I think about forgiveness and what it actually made possible for me. But as usual, before we get into it, nothing in this podcast is legal, financial, or therapeutic advice. Please work with licensed professionals for your specific situation. All right, let's go. I want to talk to you first about what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not saying something is okay. I want to start with that because most of us have been taught a version of forgiveness that requires us to minimize what happened, to say that it wasn't bad or that they were doing their best or say you understand why, and you really don't have to understand why. You don't have to make excuses for them or make it smaller than it was. There's a lot of research on forgiveness, and there's a psychologist in particular. His name is Robert Enright. Him and his colleagues, they found that forgiveness is not condoning. It's not reconciliation. It doesn't require you to rebuild trust or stay in contact or pretend that harm didn't happen. What forgiveness actually is, in research and in practice, is a decision to stop letting what was done to you define the shape of the rest of your life, to stop carrying the anger in a way that costs you more than it costs them. That's it. I don't want you to think of it as having to let go and let God or, forgive and forget. There is no such thing as forgetting. Forgetting is just denial because you can't really force yourself to forget something. But also, carrying chronic anger activates your body's stress response systems. The research on unforgiveness, so refusing to forgive someone, shows that it's associated with higher rates of depression, anxiety, and measurable physical health consequences. Forgiveness, in study after study, is associated with better outcomes, not for the person being forgiven, for the person who does the forgiving. So this is something I want you to shift in your mind. This is something that I've been working on. Again, I'm not through this one yet, but forgiveness is for you. It's not for them. Forgiveness is so that you can move on because you can't change how they think. You can't change how they feel. Yes, it would be nice if you said to someone, I forgive you because they said I'm sorry, but most of the time, that is not how it works in life. Very often in divorce, that is not how it works. One thing we're going to have to work on together that is the hardest for me is forgiving yourself and me forgiving myself. I have spent more time than I want to admit trying to work through the guilt around my son's experiences. I have to tone down my emotion even when I talk about this because the things that happened when he wasn't with me sometimes, what he experienced, and I can't go into details and I won't ever, but the ways he was affected by a situation that adults created that he had no part in choosing, I have spent more time than I want to admit trying to work through the guilt around my son's experiences. When you get divorced and you can't control what's happening in their other home, there's sometimes things that happen to them, things that they see, things that affect them that they have no part in choosing and you have no part in controlling. I have imagined in a very specific way that parents do that feels more like torture than imagination, taking every hard thing from him, right? And put me there, take me, beat me up about it. Don't beat a kid up about it. I want to carry it myself so that he doesn't have to. But then I remind myself that there is something that is always true. The home he would have grown up in full time was super duper broken. Okay. And I used the word breaking in the last episode, saying how much I didn't like it. When people say you're in a broken home if you're divorced, I would say his home is way more whole with me now than it was when his dad and I were living together. That home was broken, and I was not free to love my child the way I wanted to love him inside of that home. I was very restricted in doing that. I was mocked for loving my son. I was told it was weird. I was told that it made people jealous. Um, that was really, really hard to not feel free to pour love into your only child. My ex told me at some point during our marriage that he didn't like how close I was with my son, how much I adored him. I wasn't free to love him the way I wanted to when I was in that house. And when I left, it stopped immediately. So when I think about whether or not I made the right choice, I come back to that every single time. I've never really questioned making my choice or regretted making my choice, but when my son is going through hard times, I just think of anything that could possibly take that burden away. For me, leaving was an act of love, even when it didn't feel that way. Even when the guilt is loud for me, I still know that it was an act of love from me. Even when I can't hold it all at once and say, like, maybe if I hadn't done this, you wouldn't have experienced this. It was still an act of love. So remind yourself of that. There are very few people who are here listening. If you're here listening, you listen because you care and you're trying to work something out, right? You're not here because you're hell-bent on ruining someone else's life. I really just don't believe that. I don't really think that people who do that seek out help. It's the people who feel all of these feelings in the deep ones. So we also have to talk about forgiving your ex. Again, reminder, this is not for them, it's for you. Carrying anger for you is expensive. If you have no other way to think about it, think about what it costs you in terms of your space, your energy that could go to your kids, your work, a new version of your life that you're trying to build. Anger is energy. And when it's chronic and it runs in the background of everything, it costs more to you than it returns. You may even need doctor's visits and anti-anxiety medications and all of that. It's not worth it. Forgiving your ex doesn't mean trusting them. It doesn't mean letting them back in. It doesn't mean that you have to pretend that co-parenting with them is easier than it is. It means you make a deliberate, repeated, and active choice that you are not going to let what they did define the shape of the rest of your life. And you're going to have to make that choice more than once, probably many times. That's not a failure. It's how forgiveness really works. We're not doing this as a one-time event, but it's a direction that we are going to keep walking toward together. I really struggled with not defining forgiveness as being able to trust that person again, because it really doesn't mean that. But I really struggled with that because when you one time loved somebody and trusted them, forgiveness did mean learning to trust them again. So I think that's what was really confusing to me about learning to forgive in this new kind of way is that when you love someone and you're in a committed relationship, it is actually super important to forgive and to move forward and to, I don't want to say move on, but really just to move forward and to try to rebuild trust with them. That's important when it's two-way. But in a lot of situations, like in divorce, there's not going to be a two-way relationship here the way that there was before. So forgiving someone looks very different. So you have to make a mental transition toward forgiveness changing from being about reconciliation, which you want with someone you love intimately, to being something that just helps you heal and move forward. Another thing I needed forgiveness around was for the plans that I and we had. This was very hard for me to look at. And I think that is true for probably most people. You had a version of your life that you were building with someone. There was a marriage that you thought you were in, a relationship that you wanted to have, and a family you imagined. You saw that future. We have to make future plans, right? In some ways. And that future exists in your mind some way as something that was going to be, and then it just didn't happen. And grieving that It's a necessary part of this. You're grieving the plan. You're not just grieving the person, not just the marriage, but this whole imagined future. And you don't have to pretend that you didn't want that. You can want something and lose it and grieve it and still be glad you're free at the same time. It can all be true at the same time. And don't try to punish yourself for feeling that way. Some more forgiveness that you're probably going to need to extend is for the people who didn't show up for you, people you thought should, people you thought would. There's mentors who say cruel things to you, friends who went quiet, friends who said cruel things, family members who didn't support you or picked a side or told lies about you, people who spread rumors about you, people who gossiped about you, people who offered advice that they had no right to give as if they knew your situation. There's people who made you feel like you had failed at something that was never supposed to be a test. You don't need them to apologize to you. You don't need them to understand what you went through, and you're never going to make them understand. So don't even really try, to be honest. And you don't need to have this big conversation or reckoning or moment of mutual recognition. Sometimes we really want that. We want this moment with someone where, like, you tell them and they see and they apologize and you forgive. It's just not the reality most of the time in life, and definitely not around divorce. You just get to put it down whenever you're ready. I will be honest with you. I am not completely there yet on forgiveness. I am on some of it, but other parts of it I'm still working on. And that's the whole point of this episode, actually. Forgiveness, it's not a destination. And especially if you have a difficult situation with your ex, you're going to have to forgive them over and over and over again. And sometimes you don't want to anymore. I had an incident last week that really rattled me. It felt aggressive, and I just felt, I don't know if angry or mad or hurt or violated by what happened, but I still have to offer forgiveness eventually for that and every other thing that comes my way, because I want to keep working toward that. Some days I'll be closer to that. Some days you will too. Some days something's going to happen and you're going to be farther away from that and you can't even consider it that day. It's okay to have a day when you can't consider it. Just keep walking slowly in that direction. Breaking upward, breaking forward. It's not about leaving the past behind. It's about learning to carry it differently, not to put it down forever. I don't want you to do that. I'm not saying it's even possible. You really can't forget things. You really can't just leave things where they are. They will resurface at times. But finding a way to carry it that doesn't break you. You're doing it even a little bit right now. I know you are in some ways in your life. I am too. Maybe not in all the ways, but we're all trying, right? So just keep trying, keep moving onward and upward. Thank you so much for being here for this first series of Breaking Upward. I built this because I needed it and it didn't exist. If this show has made any part of your process less overwhelming, less lonely, or more clear, that means a lot to me, and that is why I'm here. Also, don't forget, I have the Breaking Upward platform. It's app.breaking-upward.com. It's an AI-powered platform designed to be the project manager for your divorce. Again, it's not legal advice or therapy. It's just going to help you organize the chaos and understand what you're looking at and know what's coming next. It's going to go from before you file through the first year of what comes after. It's real, most of it is live, and I would love to know what you think of it. And one more thing. After this episode, we're going back in. The next arc of this show is going somewhere I think a lot of you have been waiting for: narcissism and gaslighting. We're going to talk about the difference between what the internet tells you and what is actually clinically true. We're going to work with a therapist who specifically works with clients who are on the receiving end of gaslighting narcissism, and as a therapist who works with people who have been the narcissist and gaslighters. So we're going to be careful about it, and we're going to be honest, and I really can't wait to get into it with you. So please share the show with someone who needs it. You know who she is. I'm Rachel Newhouse, and this is Breaking Upward. You're not breaking down, you're breaking upward. I'll see you next time. This is your reminder from me and Alice that Breaking Upward is not legal, financial, or therapeutic advice. Please seek out a professional for your specific situation